Hey everyone, Nick with the Flex training team here to go over status options in Flex. This is going to be the first of a workflow playlist where we go over all things workflow related. To start, we're going to go to the main menu, System Settings, and scroll down until we find Status Options. To create a new status, we're going to click on the plus sign down in the bottom left corner. From here, we can name the status. And then we have a few parameters to go through from here. The first one is called Creates Conflicts. This one is generally going to be related to inventory allocation. For example, when we first create a quote, we start off in the inquiry status where we are not creating conflicts against other jobs in relation to inventory. It's not until we move to the tentative or confirmed statuses where we start creating conflicts against other jobs within that date range. Creating conflicts also has to do with conflict resolution in purchase POs as well as rental POs, where creating conflicts in those workflows will actually resolve those shortages. The close status is in relation to closing the project element out. So this will generally be used for the end of the workflow line. So returned in relation to equipment lists is generally a closed status. The closed status in respect to the quote default workflow will be a closed status, as well as invoice paid for the invoice being a closed status as a few examples there. The locked status gives you the ability to lock the status so that you can't make any changes to that project element. So no changes to the header information, no changes to details or anything like that until the workflow is moved into an open status. Locks availability is in relation to locking the availability from a parent project element. For example, when the pull sheet is created, we land in the awaiting prep status where we are locking the availability from its parent quote. When this happens, we see locks on the line items of the quote because they're now being controlled by the downstream document of the pull sheet. Probability is generally a means of a reference percentage for the likeliness that that job will go through. For example, when we're looking at the inquiry status, we have a probability of 33%. When we look at the tentative status, that probability goes up to 66%. I generally like to refer to tentative as receiving verbal confirmation from a client, but you haven't quite received the signature yet. And then when you have received that signature, you've reached the confirmed status where you're at 100% probability that that event is going to happen. And then we have two more options for the background color of the status, as well as the text color of the status. In each, we get a full spectrum where you can customize the status colors to your liking. Once we create the new status, we get a new prompt after this new status window. This prompt is for configuring which project elements we want to use this new status for. And then we have two options in the columns to the right. Do we want to set this as the default status? Or do we want to just permit the status for use? If we set it as the default status, this will be the first status that project element is created in. If I'm going to turn this on for the quote, I may not want this to be the very first status that the quote is created in, but I may want to permit it for use so that I can use it somewhere in the workflow. In the next video, we'll go over how to create a new workflow state and utilize that status, as well as create actions to get into and out of that status.